Yo, 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 people and patrons of the night, it is your boy, the Horrorlander. I gotta make sure I say that word properly, say all the syllables, otherwise YouTube's gonna come after me. Today I'm gonna be talking about the top 5 Goosebumps media that I think don't deserve as much hate as they typically get within the community. Now, this does not necessarily mean I'm talking about media that I find underrated. It's more so me saying that these ones typically get hated on, shunned, put aside a lot of the time by a majority of the community for whatever reason. But after I'd read them or watched this certain piece of media from Goosebumps, I thought it wasn't as bad as people were hyping up. And maybe it even has parts that I slightly enjoy, if not, I full on enjoy them. And I decided to pick ones that I typically see a lot of hate from, whether it be I go on online forums on Reddit, whether I see in YouTube comments, whether I'm in Discord chats, whether I see reviews from other fellow reviewers. I treat those all as factoring within my decisions, and I kind of have a general idea as to ones that are kind of shunned out there within the overall community. So yeah, without further ado, if you enjoy this type of content, you want to see more kids horror content and Goosebumps content for my upcoming videos, you can just hit that subscribe button, like button, and share button. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
Viewer beware, you're in for a scare.
Now into the official top 5. Number 5, we get into the book from the OG 62, very popular to hate on, but I never understood it, which is Chicken Chicken. Chicken Chicken is one that everyone pretty much hates on. You see a lot of different reviewers and even fans often going into it. The goofy title, the goofy cover, the goofy synopsis. It's just a really weird one that's kind of easy to crap on. But after I read it, I didn't really understand all the hate for it. Chicken Chicken is sort of like a ripoff of Stephen King's Thinner, which it is, but I do like the fact that R.L. Stine actually took his own take on it. He does end up changing the plot a little bit and making his own unique flair, so I do appreciate it for that. There's also good body horror in this one. A lot of the times when the descriptions are talking about feathers sprouting out about the skin of the kids, and as they're pulling them out, there's a bunch of holes left behind in their arms and their legs, which if you have trypophobia, that's going to get to you. And it also reminded me, although not obviously to the same quality as the media, but it reminded me of the Creepshow segment from the first movie back in the 1980s called The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill. In this segment, it was talking about basically a man who ends up touching a meteor, and he ends up basically having alien plants sprout off of his body, and it makes your skin itch, it makes you uncomfortable, especially if body horror gets to you. And although it's not to the same level, the idea of slowly turning into a chicken is a goofy concept, no doubt, but the way it's done in this book definitely makes my skin itch. It definitely makes me a little bit uncomfortable, especially with certain details like their lips hardening into beaks, which if you ever gotten like some acne or pimples around your lips, you know how much that hurts just to move it around. I can only imagine the pain or the horror you feel as you touch your lips and they're hardening into cartilage. And again, just pulling out the feathers from your arms, having that trypophobia, holes all throughout you. It's pretty good body horror. Not the best one by any means, but it's decent enough for what it is. And really, most of the book I enjoyed. I like the writing in it. I like the environment. The kids grow up in a farmhouse. And I like the local suburb descriptions. I like the main villain, who they sort of misjudged. There's a moral behind it as to you shouldn't really pick on certain people, judge a book by its cover, and then it ends up backfiring on them. And the moral sort of holds up until the very ending of the story, which is kind of the main downside to it. So overall, I actually think Chicken Chicken is pretty decent for the most part. I know it gets a lot of hate. I know a lot of people give it sort of like a lot of bad rep, but overall, after reading the book, I enjoyed it more than I think most people do. And if you're into that sort of body horror stuff, if you can appreciate some of the writing and some of the morals up until that bad ending, I think that you would actually like more a majority of it than a lot of people claim to. So that is number 5 on my list, Chicken Chicken. Number 4 on my list is another kind of well-dismissed, well-shunned upon one from the OG 62, and this one is How I Learned to Fly. How I Learned to Fly is basically a Disney Channel original movie made into a Goosebumps book.
Hey, I'm Hilary Duff from Lizzie McGuire, and you're watching Disney Channel.
And yeah, it's out of place. It's not really what you get in terms of the Goosebumps formula. But that being said, some of the similar writing tropes are still there. Some of the similar character tropes are still there. And overall, I think that it's a well-written story. It's a great coming-of-age story. And the main character actually has a lot more maturity to him than a lot of other sort of cardboard cutout Goosebumps characters you see throughout the franchise. It is refreshing to get a more fleshed out character because he makes some pretty mature decisions. You have the whole theme about trying to get comeuppance, coming of age, trying to become kind of like the big hotshot because he has a rival that's always sort of one-upping him and he wants to win over a girl's attention. So him and his rival end up coincidentally gaining the powers of flight, and they sort of become these famous superheroes, and slowly the main character realizes that even though I'm becoming famous, even though I have these powers, it's not solving all my problems, and he still sort of feels down. And by the end of the story, he makes a very mature decision where he basically prioritizes his own happiness and his own satisfaction over then basically trying to look like the best out of him and his rival. He actually ends up letting a certain character get their own comeuppance and sort of get their own rise to fame while he sacrifices it and at the same time makes himself happy and satisfied. So that's a very mature decision. You will not see that out of certain characters unless you're reading about like Carly Beth from The Haunted Mask or Craig Morgenstein from Are You Terrified Yet? And again, just overall, it's a well-written story. The pacing is good. The story structure is good. It's very linear. It overall plays out like you would feel a DCOM movie would play out. And yeah, although it may not feel exactly like a Goosebumps story, there's not really horror to it. There are a bunch of other Goosebumps stories out there that don't have horror aspects. And this one, surprisingly, is well-written. It gives you something refreshing. And even though it is unique, you can see in a bad sense, you can also take it as unique in a good sense. And the fact that you can give it a quick read, you'll enjoy a good tale. And overall, I definitely would have liked to see this one adapted into some type of movie. Yeah, maybe the effects would have been bad on Disney Channel, but I feel like this one definitely would have resonated with me. And I enjoy it for some of the morals, good character writing, and overall fun scenes. I do like the idea of getting superpowers, and this one I think did it pretty well without going into too much of the superhero trope. So, well done, Stein, for stepping out of your box and making something refreshing. The third one on my list happens to go to a TV original episode which gets a lot of hate because people instead wanted it to be adapting other books, other material, other stories instead of having a TV original. And it ended up taking a 3-parter, so it ended up being 60 minutes. So you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Chillogy episodes. Chillogy is one that a lot of people give hate for, and yeah, I completely disagree with a lot of it. This one, in my opinion, definitely deserves less hate, and it does go into the underrated mark. Chillogy is extremely well produced in terms of the budget. They used a lot of great practical effects, and yeah, there are some bad CGI, but even the CGI is quite creative. The 3-parter has a lot of fun moments throughout it, specifically with the characters having a uniform moral that gets tacked upon with this miniature town and its keeper, Karl. That's dealing with greed, being a little bit too over-ambitious without wanting to do the hard work, and that specifically is represented with the first part, which goes into acquiring money and cheating people out of money. The second part goes into getting fame, even though you may not have the talent or capability or specialty for it, so sort of getting a cheat code in terms of becoming famous. And the last one involved winning the lottery, which winning the lottery in this case was sort of like selling your soul, specifically to the devil of this town, Karl Knave. A lot of people enjoy the first and third part more, but I even enjoy the second part, man. Again, this trilogy is filled with a bunch of fun moments throughout it. Again, the main villain, Karl, is fantastic. He's got a lot of charisma. He's got a genuine threat level because he's able to basically trap you in this pocket dimension within this town and manipulate it. He's sort of like a pseudo-god within this town, and even though he's not able to hurt you on the outside, he's able to lure you in with your own insecurities and human weaknesses, attract you towards it, and as soon as you make contact with the town and do a certain something, which you'll see in the episode, you end up getting dragged into this pocket dimension where he essentially tortures children and puts them through the ringer.
Glad you could make it. We're about ready to play ball. You ready?
Me?
You're dressed for it?
But I was just standing in my room. Look looking at this miniature field.
That's why they call it Little League.
That being said, he does it in very fun ways. In the first episode, when the main character gets turned into a pig, there's actually a thematic representation behind that because of her greed, being greedy like a pig. And I remember the prosthetic effects of that as a kid made me uncomfortable. I was literally watching her getting chased by a crazy cult mob of town folk who wanted to essentially kill her and take her away, and she ends up hiding in that telephone booth and running around. I felt really bad for her, but at the same time, as you grow up, you realize that she sort of invokes it, and she's kind of reaping what she sows, which is overall a good plot.
Us.
Yeah!
He's nothing but a greedy little pig.
Karl told you not to be greedy, but you didn't listen. You're nothing but a greedy little pig.
Get the pig.
Pig goes great with lemonade.
The second one I enjoy for how fun it is. You have Karl Knave's performance in the stadium, which is absolute gold.
He gets me every time.
You also have him switching between roles and manipulating the field. The field ends up breaking up into a pit of magma that the kid has to get over. There's monster pitchers and other basically team members with them. There's also a floating baseball with teeth, which is horrifying to look at. And then you have the third segment where basically they have to go on a rescue mission because their little kid brother is about to be turned into this plastic mannequin doll that's going to become basically part of the town folk, a slave to Karl Knave within this miniature town. So yeah, overall, a lot of threat levels throughout these 3 episodes, a lot of intensity, there's good themes, good messages, overall good writing, and I feel like they used their budget and casting pretty well. And to add insult to injury, there's another reason why I love it. Yes, I bragged about Karl Knave being one of the best villains, being charismatic, having that charm, being funny, but also having that threat level which makes him ominous, and there is actually a tangible threat level. But there's another reason why I love Karl Knave, and that's for a fact that nobody else has picked up on. That the dude is a pimp. Okay, I know what you guys are talking about right now. You guys are saying, what? Did he just say Karl Knave is a pimp? Ain't no way Blood just said this man is a pimp. But let me convince y'all, man. Look at this man's wardrobe, bro. Do you see his outfits? He's dressed up clean as hell. The boy is fly, man. He should be walking down the streets in New York back in the 1980s and 90s, and he should be rocking a cane, man. Put a skull on top of it too, or even a diamond jewel, and have him smoking a blunt, man. First of all, Karl Knave is in love with the calf, man. He loves his mucho dinero, he loves his money, but he doesn't like it when people fucks him over. And you see it in the first segment, man. And I know you see this man's drip right now. We see the fit, Karl. We see the fit. You know who this motherfucker look like, low-key? Look!
My name is a pimp named Slickback, and I believe I may have misplaced some merchandise at this residence. There she is. Bitch, I hope you got the monies to cover this little vacation you've been taking.
I know I've seen this man before, man. Karl Knave, bro. If he was getting a cartoon adaptation, bro, you know Cat Williams is gonna voice him. Alright, I've seen this man before. This is a pimp named Karl. This is just a disclaimer, the Horrorland does not support any of the pimp professions. It's simply meant for jokes, satire, sarcasm, simply meant for laughs of the audience. Believe me, I am quite the feminist. I support women's rights. You are definitely heard, understood, looked out for. And that being said, if you happen to look like the woman right here, and here, just know I especially respect your rights, especially I'm looking out for you, and this was never meant to be taken seriously, alright? All y'all people know out there that I love the bitches. I mean women, shit! So yeah. Chillogy. That one is definitely deserving less hate. Number 2 on my list happens to go to another controversial episode, and this one is An Old Story. An Old Story is definitely controversial. A lot of people seem to dislike it or hate on it because it goes down a controversial route. Alright, it goes into the inappropriate world of sort of child predators and those type of innuendos. But that being said, the reason why I enjoy this episode and commend it for how dark and sort of disturbing it got is that there's no explicitly disgusting scenes. There's no explicitly sort of dark scenes that would make you necessarily uncomfortable. It's actually the undertones of the episode and the dark comedy approach that make you uncomfortable. And that's what makes it kind of brilliant. The episode is full of a lot of more comical scenes, a lot more humor, and they kind of play it up, but the undertones behind it, the deeper themes behind it, are reflected in the real world, and it's done in such a way that it's not openly inappropriate to people, it's not explicitly uncomfortable to people, but the undertones make you uncomfortable. And that's what good horror does. I mean, look at Piano Lessons Can Be Murder. That one also has some disturbing undertones, but at the same time, there was nothing too explicit. It actually did it in quite a clever way that Scholastic could get away with it, R.L. Stine could get away with it, and yet it still holds the message. And I actually think it enhances the creepy factor in the simple fact that they play up the comedic parts to sort of make you drop your guard, but in the inside, you realize what's really going on. And that's what makes it quite brilliant. And I commend the fact that R.L. Stine took a leap of faith and decided to make this episode, because you will not find another kids horror media episode, book out there, or story out there which really tackles this sort of darker subject in the proper kids horror fashion. So for that is an accomplishment to R.L. Stine. Now the short story ending actually does get into a darker route where you find out what type of ring and operations are really going on in terms of this whole story. But the ending in the episode is even played up to be more goofy, so they actually doubled down on it. And the best thing about this episode is that the horrendous villain, in the sense that she does horrific things, she basically gets a horrific death. Yeah, that's right. Aunt Dahlia dies in a horrific fashion, and she got the justified consequences for what she was doing. So I appreciate that. R.L. Stine did not try to make a villain sort of win in this case. No, they got what was coming to them. And finally, number one on my list, and this is probably going to be my most controversial pick, is going to go to the episode from the TV show which I found the most fun, the most enjoyable. I'd never laughed this hard when it comes to an episode, and I never had such a good time as much as I did with this episode, maybe outside of Chillogy, which is Horrorland Part 2.
Have Doyle, ear of Holyfield? Booger surprise?
No, thanks.
No? Suit yourself.
You're not gonna hurt us, are you?
Oh, darling, we're monsters, but we're not monsters.
Now, first of all, the budget in this show really shows with Horrorland Part 1. It is not one day at Horrorland. It is one day at Horror Park, one day at Horror Fair. It is so low budget. It looks so bad, and it completely downplays what One Day in Horrorland's book is supposed to be. So the fact that they sort of butchered it is really disappointing. It did not need an episode adaptation, even though the book is popular, because they should have known they never would have been able to adapt it properly. And that's why I appreciate the fact that the second part of the episode deviates from the book. Because if you would have gotten another 20 minutes of just this butchering and slandering of the content, it would not have been fun. It would have not been enjoyable. And I don't know why people try to act like they would have enjoyed that more. Oh, you would have liked to seen one of your favorite books get butchered even more by the lack of budget and the lack of control with the show? Yeah, no, I would have preferred to avoid that, considering how much I love the original book. And part 2 of the episode actually kind of pays homage and is very similar to a Goosebumps story which is already out there. And you can treat this as like an unofficial adaptation of that story because of all the similarities and the fact that that story came out around the same time as the episode would have aired, which is a story from Triple Header Book 1, Spin the Wheel of Horror. Spin the Wheel of Horror from Triple Header was about a family who goes into this game show run by monsters. They think it's all fake, but then they realize a lot of it might be real and they might be in real danger. And Horrorland ended up spinning that into their own contest, making it sort of meta and throwing in some more sort of nods to it being self-aware, and it made it more fun. It tied it into the Horrorland lore, made it enjoyable. There's a lot of hilarious moments throughout this segment, one of which I'll highlight is the commercial reel for all the Goosebumps Kids Bop music. I mean, check this shit out.
Greatest monster love songs. You'll get Your Heart Is in My Pocket and Your Lips Are in My Drawer. And get in the mood with Wart to Wart. And who can forget I Want to Hold Your Claws.
I was dying laughing seeing that. And you also have a absolutely funny scene where this bootleg Jared Leto of the Horrors, who's trying to, I guess, audition as the host of the show, ends up getting attacked by a werewolf monster, which is the same animatronic that Saber was. And seeing Saber attack that dude was kind of messed up. It's also how funny, how over the top and comical it is that the parents basically get the idea that they can win a new car, and now they're ready to basically forget everything else that happened in the previous episode and put their kids in danger. I mean, horrible parents, but it makes for funny content and it adds for a pretty crazy story. And that's all I got for today. Those are my picks for Goosebumps media that I think deserve less hate than they actually get in the community. And I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, again, free way to support me. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, comment down below. Specifically, comment down below, do you agree with my list? Do you not agree? What are some of your picks for Goosebumps media you think deserves less hate? And if you agree with my list, what are some of the reasons that you did? And stay tuned for more content to come. That's all I got for today. Deuces.
アリーベデルチ